Okay, so here we are on the brand new Adobe.com, and I'm already signed in. So as you can see, now you get your actual profile picture that you get to set up, and that way you're, number one, you know it's you logged in because you see your profile picture, and number two, you notice that all of the web properties that I mentioned now are in one spot. So even if you were on a phone, you're the focus, not Adobe.com. So that's the way it would look on a phone. It's still your menu with your things. Now, if I wanted to learn more about the apps, I can click on Desktop, and I'm taken right to the Desktop Apps area. One of the things that's pretty cool about this, and we get this question a lot, is now that we're on Creative Cloud and we're doing these updates to the applications, instead of waiting a full 18 to 24 months until everything's ready, we're updating features along the way. So because that happens, a lot of times people forget or don't really catch what's new in a particular update that came out in January versus September versus November, so forth and so on. So now when you go to the various product pages and you click what's new, you actually get a by date what's been added to the product. So here's what came out in January. Here's what came out last September. Here's what came out in June when we first launched the CC version of Photoshop. So feature by feature, date by date, you can go in and check on any particular application and see what was added and when. And again, a lot of times you'll see things in here that you may not even realize were in the application because it was maybe not a significant new feature, but still important enough. All right, and again, I can, no matter where I am, I can get back to my identity and quickly get to whatever else I want. So if I wanted to get to my files that I store on Creative Cloud, I can jump to the Files area, and this will show me my files area, which are, again, you get 20 gigs of Creative Cloud storage that you can put whatever files up there you want whenever you want. So it's showing me my files, and as before, not only do I get to see the typical files like JPEGs and PNGs and GIFs on the web, but I get to actually see my native files. So in this case, here's a native PSD or Photoshop file. And I'm not only able to see it, but I'm able to see comments on it. I can, of course, share it with others, and more importantly, I can even get to the layers. I can turn layers on and off in a PSD. So being able to do this with the Creative Cloud file storage is what makes it different than all the other file storage companies out there like Dropbox and Google Drive and so forth and so on. The fact that I can not only see the native files, but even control them in various ways that I can't do on the other services. There we go. Okay, the other thing that's new here is you notice I have a folder called Sharing. In that folder are different folders that I'm collaborating with people. We call it collaborating, other services call it folder sharing. Now, folder sharing has had this on-off relationship with Creative Cloud. It would come out as a public beta, but now it's actually real. So it's no longer a beta feature, it is a part of Creative Cloud. So if you want to share a folder, for example, if I want to share this demo folder, I can just go to Collaborate, and then I can pick and choose who I want to collaborate with, send the email to them, they get an email, they click accept if they want to, and then they see that folder in their Creative Cloud. They can put files in it, take files out, modify files, just like I can. All right, so the folder sharing part of that is real now, and let's go back. And let's head over to the Creative Cloud desktop application. So the Creative Cloud desktop app has been there since day one, and you'll notice that the tabs have changed a little. So you still have the Home tab, which is keeping you up with what you've been doing, what the people that you're following have been doing. So if you're following people on Behance or people are joining shared folders, you'll see all of that activity here for your particular stream. Of course, next to that is the Apps tab. This is where you go to install your applications. I'll come back to that in a minute. The next is the Files tab. This is where we were before on the website. We're reviewing the files. And of course, I could just open my Creative Cloud Files folder and get to those same exact files that are on the web. So from here, I could actually double click and open up that PSD. This is also where you would drag files in or out to put them on Creative Cloud or not. And again, this is all optional. You don't have to store anything on Creative Cloud. It's your storage to use or not use any way you want. The fonts area, this is where you have access to now. I believe the library is valued at over $40,000 if you were to buy these fonts separately. So we'll come back to this in a minute, but basically access to a font library of not only web fonts that are built into the web products, but desktop fonts that you can use in any product, not just Creative Cloud. So if you wanted to go out and find a font to use, you can just click Add Fonts from Typekit. And again, depending on the internet speed, I clicked it twice. It will load up the Typekit website, allow you to browse the fonts, and then pick which ones you want to sync and install. Now, the other thing that's nice about the Typekit desktop fonts is that when you do click to install or sync them, they are synced in the background, and you don't have to quit your Creative Cloud applications to take advantage of them. So if you're in the middle of a project and you want a new font, you go find that new font and you say, hey, I would love to use Adele. You click Adele and say sync selected fonts. Now that's updating and syncing in the background, and in a moment I'll see, actually I have it turned off, but I'll see a pop-up that will alert me, hey, those fonts have been installed on your computer. So I didn't have to download anything, click an installer, trash the installer when I'm done. It just does all of that in the background, and again, 4 fonts were added, even while I'm working. So I can now go to any application that's open or open an application, and the Adele fonts will be there for me to use. Back to the Creative Cloud app. Those are fonts that work in any app. They don't go in the system, they go in a place where we put them, but they're available to any application. Community, this is where you would access, and notice we changed it. It used to say, I believe, Behance, but we've changed it now to say community because we expect to add more things to this beyond Behance. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with what Behance is, Behance.net is a website that anyone can go to. Anyone can sign up for it for free. It's not a Creative Cloud only thing. And it's the world's largest social network for creatives. So whether you're a graphic designer, photographer, musician, videographer, anything that you're doing that's a creative thing, this is your community. So think of it as the Facebook for creatives. But unlike Facebook, people are actually putting up creative projects and getting feedback from the people that follow them. And usually that feedback's very constructive, very kind in most cases, about the projects that you may be working on and want feedback on. When I view my profile here on Behance, just want to show you the Behance website, if we can get that to come up. So it'll show the projects I've worked on and I put up here, and of course that people can go and appreciate or give feedback on. I've got currently 876 followers and 608 appreciations and comments and things like that. But if you go to Behance in general, one of the other cool things that, actually I could do it from up here, one of the other cool things that people don't realize is that you can actually go here and look for jobs. So if you're a creative and you're looking for, a creative for hire, you can actually go here and see job listings or post your resume or post your portfolio and say, hey, I'd love to be your photographer, your videographer, your creative designer, your musician, your whatever. And again, people are looking for people here that are creatives. So, and plus they get to not only see you, but see your work because you posted it on Behance. So it's a one-stop shop for creatives. And let's see if I can get back to my Creative Cloud. One last try to see if this menu comes back up. There it is. Now it's coming back up. All right, so we talked about fonts. For those of you who know Cooler, our website for color swatches. Your Cooler swatches are integrated here. We talked about files. We talked about fonts. Last but not least is Lightroom Mobile. So Lightroom Mobile went live in March this year at Photoshop World. And so as a Creative Cloud member, if you're a Lightroom user, you can now pick and choose collections that you want to put up in Lightroom Mobile to share across multiple devices. So if I have shared photos, I can go to Lightroom Mobile, and once again, I'm not having to sign in or do anything special because I'm already signed in once. So it took me to the lightroom.adobe.com website, and it's now showing me the collections that I have there, which we'll come back to that in a moment when we talk more about Lightroom. So that is your Creative Cloud app experience right now. So those are the main tabs that's still here. Let's go back to the Apps tab like I promised. And there are a few things that have changed here. First and foremost, and I'll cover this because it came up on the bulletin board. Jim had a question about this, and a few others, which prompted me to write a blog post for tomorrow about it. But you notice that I have Photoshop CC and I have Photoshop CC 2014. Why do I have 2 copies of Photoshop? And I even have Photoshop CS6 still. And all 3 are up to date. So why do I have 3 versions of Photoshop? Well, number one, because I can. Do I have to have 3 versions of Photoshop? No, I don't. So you'll notice in my applications folder, you'll see the Adobe applications, and some of them you will see once. Most of them you'll see once, like After Effects CC 2014, Auditions 2014. But then some you'll see more than once. Photoshop CC 2014, and Photoshop CS6. So 3 different versions of Photoshop. Now, the CS6 one, that's obvious. That was when CS6 was out, just like had I still had CS5 installed, it would still be there, CS4 would still be there, so forth and so on. And then we went to CC last year. So that would be that version. So why is there another CC version? Because starting in June, we basically made a decision that the 14 apps that we updated would be brand new binaries. In other words, we would create an archive point that everything that we had done from June last year to June this year would be called CC. June this year going forward would be CC 2014. Now there's a few reasons for that. Number one, we could have kept going just calling it CC forever and just keep adding more and more new features to that one binary until there was a need for a new binary. For example, Adobe Muse was built on a technology called Air. Well, the last 2 years, the team spent rewriting that application to be a brand new native 64-bit application on Mac and Windows. So it would have been impossible to update the old one because it's totally different technology. So there would have been a new binary anyway for that application. Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign over the last 5 or 6 years have been updated to be 64-bit. And again, caused new binaries. There's no way to update the old one. You'd have to have a new application icon. So, and in the case of InDesign in particular, most versions of InDesign also, because they added new features, required the file format change. So like, for example, there's an InDesign CS4 file format, there's a CS5 file format, there's a CS6 file format, so forth and so on. So since these things happen with some of the apps over time, it's basically, we made the decision for June, all new binaries. Anyone needed to make any changes to their file formats or applications or whatever, here's your day. And that's what happened. Now, do I need, if I have CC 2014, do I still need CC? No. Unless there was something that was only compatible with CC that you have that's not compatible with CC 2014. Then you'd keep both. But otherwise, I've uninstalled most of my CC applications because I don't need both. I don't need Dreamweaver CC, I don't need Premiere CC, I don't need After Effects CC. I've uninstalled all those because the current one is all I need. Just like I kept Photoshop CS6 around to show people some things that they still have CS6. But most days most weeks or months I go by without ever launching it. So to free up disk space, absolutely, you can uninstall the versions you don't need. But if you launch it and you need it and you find there's something changed, missing, incompatible, whatever, you can keep the old version if you want to. Now, what if you jumped the gun? What if you said, hey, I got all new 2014 apps and I've uninstalled everything else. Got rid of the CC, got rid of CS6, and then I realized, hey, this plugin I used to use isn't going to be updated and still requires CC or CS6. Oops, I wish I'd kept it. Well, there's news. One of the things that got changed in this last update for the Creative Cloud app, and this actually happened a few weeks ago, is that when you scroll down, there's a breakpoint that shows you the apps you have installed versus the apps you don't have installed. And on that bar is a menu that's brand new. And that menu, it looks like it just sorts by category, but it also has a new category called previous version. So if I bring up previous version, now that changes, notice it added a bunch of icons down here for the ones I don't have installed. So if I need, for example, InDesign CS6 for some reason, I uninstalled it months ago, I can go back and reinstall it right from here. So we're archiving the old versions for you from CS6 going forward. Even if you never had CS6, you could still, as a Creative Cloud member, go reinstall it if you need, or go install it if you needed to. So you can feel free to uninstall the old versions if you want to, or don't need them. And if you ever need them again, you can reinstall them from here. Got it?
Has the file format for Photoshop changed at all?
The file format for Photoshop always changes.
Well,
But in most cases, it says it gives you a maximized compatibility feature, and it's still there. Yeah. All right, so that's why you see two icons, or I'm sorry, two folders for your CC apps. And I'll admittedly, we did a horrible job of not communicating that to people because they were caught off guard. They, on June 18th, went and clicked, hey, update, update, update. Wait, why do I still see the old ones? Why is there a difference? So we didn't communicate that well at all. So that's why I wrote a blog post for tomorrow. And hopefully that blog post will get lots of reads and attention for people that are confused as to why they have it.
What's your recommended way to get rid of the old one?
Your recommended way for the last 5 versions of Creative Apps is to run the uninstaller. Each folder has its own uninstaller. Uninstall the old version. That way, don't just drag it to the trash. If you just drag it to the trash, you aren't uninstalling it. And more importantly, if you just drag it to the trash, the desktop app will think it's still installed. So it will constantly be offering you updates and things like that for an application you no longer have. So if I don't want, let's see if I still have another one in here. If I don't, let's say I'm done with Photoshop CC. If I don't want it anymore, I would run the uninstaller for it. And that will safely uninstall that version. Now, when you run an uninstaller, it's going to also have a checkbox to remove the preferences. You're going to think, oh no, if I remove these preferences, am I removing the ones that I'm really using for 2014? No, each version has its own preferences. So you can say yes, remove preferences for that version if you're no longer going to use that version, and remove the app as well, because your 2014 has its own preferences.
When I first launched 2014, it asked about migrating my presets.
Right.
Does it copy or does it take the presets over?
Copies. Yep. And that's in my blog post tomorrow. I thought about that. That's in my blog post tomorrow because I know someone would ask that question. But since you hadn't read it yet, because it hasn't come out yet, figured I'd answer it now. All right. So let's jump right in now that we've got the installation, website, all that stuff out of the way, and let's talk about features. All right, so let's start with Photoshop. I'm going to go ahead and double click and launch a Photoshop file, and I'm going to get an error on purpose. I pre-cooked this error for you. It's an error you've all seen before. Here we go. Missing font. But there's a difference. Photoshop CC on down, if there was a missing font, it would just tell you, hey, you're missing such and such font. Click OK. You're on your own to go find it, install it, fix it, resolve the problem. It would just warn you that you're missing the font. Now, for the first time, Creative Cloud is offering me a choice. I can just say, nope, cancel, and it will still open the file, and don't do anything about the missing font. Or, if it's a font that we have in Creative Cloud as part of your Typekit desktop fonts, we'll offer to install it for you right on the spot. So I can say, yes, yes, I would love Magneto Book. Resolve that for me, and it's now syncing that font with Typekit and installing and solving the problem. So that's the first thing. Second thing, speaking of fonts, let's go ahead and zoom up a little bit. Hold down my space bar, I'm gonna move this over. And let's go to the type tool. This is one that's been a long time coming. But let's go to the font menu in general. First of all, I got this question last time I showed Creative Cloud about, I think it was InDesign's new font menu. First thing after I showed all those cool things, the InDesign font menu was, does Photoshop have that? And the answer was no, because Photoshop didn't have that then. And by the way, you're even going to see some features today, maybe in Illustrator or InDesign or Photoshop, that you're going to wonder if the other applications have it. Here's a general thing that normally happens in development. Rarely do all the applications get a new feature, like the same new feature at the same time. Why? Because one of the teams has to be the pioneer to make the feature. And then the other teams sit back and say, do people like that? Oh, okay, we'll put it in ours too. So, InDesign was the first one with the cool new font menu. Photoshop team said, yeah, that's cool, people love that, we'll put it in ours too. And Illustrator did the same thing. So, but what that new font menu was for InDesign, for those of you who don't remember, didn't see it, well, first of all, you can, of course, pull down a font menu and see your fonts. That doesn't change. But you notice that there's a search. Well, actually, it wasn't really search before. It was a whatever I type, take me to that name in the list. Like if I start typing C, it would take me to the C fonts. Now it's a real search. So if I type bold, it shows me all the bolds, no matter what they're called. If I type heavy, it shows me all the heavies, no matter what they're called. So it's a real search, just like in InDesign. But here's the new killer feature, because that, again, that's just copying a feature that was in one program over to the other one. The font that I want to really change is this Vimes font. Or I'm sorry, this Vimes logo. So when I go back and I say, show me the heavies, now before, if I wanted to see each one of these in that logo, I'd have to highlight it, choose the font, look at it, hide the highlighting, and then choose the next one, hide the highlight, whatever. Now I can just hover over each one and it will show it to me in context, even if I didn't highlight the font, the type first. I just have the layer selected. And so that's not just for typekit fonts. Those are true type, type 1, open type, so forth and so on. Now speaking of your typekit fonts, there's a button right here now, right on the font menu, to do what I did earlier, to go take you to the website and let you go find the font, click and install it. What if you want to see which typekit fonts you have installed? That's what the button's for on the left-hand side, the filter. And there are no heavy ones, so let me get rid of heavy. These are all the ones that are typekit. Which one did I install? Adele? Is that the one? And there it is. So I didn't quit Photoshop, didn't have to do anything strange. Adele's just there ready to use now, along with all the other ones that I have installed. So, font preview while the layer is selected without having to highlight and change each time, and search, and the filtering, and the go find a font to install right there, all font enhancements in this version. Okay, next, let's jump to this area of the photo where we've got the old school tape deck. I would love to make this spindle look like it's spinning. So let me go to that layer. Let me find it. Let me select it. And I want to apply a filter to it. Brand new blur filter. Now, and I believe it was CS6 started a category of filters called Blur Gallery. And now in CC 2014, we've added 2 new ones to it. So under the filter menu, I head down to Blur Gallery, and I have 2 new ones, Path Blur and Spin Blur. So these other 4 or 3 were already there. So when I go Spin Blur, that will pop it on screen, usually puts it right in the center here. Let me go find it, there it is. Let me pull it down, and let me control the shape of it. And let me pull it down right about there. And of course I can rotate it, change the size, height, so forth and so on. Now it makes it spin basically. Well, what if I want to control the amount of spin? Well, that's a dial right here on the filter. I can dial it up or dial it down. So on-screen controls for that filter, or I can do it on the right-hand side. What if I want to change the feathering from the edge? Just drag the center handles in to control the amount of feather from the edge out. Less feathering, more feathering. Controlling what part of it's actually spinning. So that's Spin Blur, a new filter that I'm sure there's no car that's not going to have its tires spinning from here on out in Photoshop. All right, let's zoom out. Let's zoom down to this guy. Now this guy is playing a guitar. And in photography, depending on your shutter speed, you can freeze the action. So in other words, he's in mid-stroke. Shutter speed was fast enough to freeze it so you don't see any blur whatsoever. Sometimes you actually desire the blur. So too late to go back and reshoot it with a slower shutter speed to make it look like he was playing. I've got to fix this now. So I'm going to go to that layer, and that layer is a smart object, so I'm going to double click on it to open up the original file. There's the whole picture. We're only seeing a part of it. And I'd love to make his hand look like it's playing a guitar. So what I'm going to do is use the other one with this, which is path blur. So when I bring it up, the first thing you'll notice with path blur is that it just applies it right on the middle of the screen. Blurs the whole thing from left to right. Well, I can hold down the Command key and pick it up and move it and put it wherever I want. So I want to move it over here. And I can, of course, turn it any way I want. So I can have the blur going that way. And it's called path blur for a reason. I can pull out a point. I can move this point away from it to make it look like not only the hand is moving, but the guitar is going up and down as well. Well, that's great for that, but you made the whole picture blurry. How do I just refine it to that area of the photo? Well, path blur is either on or off, but you can have multiple paths. And therefore, I can have this path with the blur nice and strong, but I can put another one that's in a different part of the photo that kind of turns it off. So for example, I can go here, and I can say, well, now it looks like it's just blurring that one more and this one down. Well, if I hold down my Command key and double click on the points, that sets them back to 0. So I can turn off the blur in that area. And I can go here where it's kind of like spilling out into the drums and everything else, and kind of maybe say from here to here. Again, Command double click, don't do that much. Well, I don't want his face to be blurred. Same thing, from here to here. Command double click to turn it off. Don't blur that part of the photo. So I can put blur where I want it or turn blur off where I want it in any direction and add multiple points to the path to make it as curvy as I want. So that's the new path blur. Click OK, close it, save it. It puts it back in, and we got the motion going on there. I could turn it down probably a little bit for the hand, but you get the idea. And because that is a smart object, I can go back in, double click, and it's non-destructive. I can go and adjust those controls if I don't like it. All right, that is, oh, one more. I noticed the band names down here are all bunched together. I'd like to give them some space. So one of the new things in Photoshop CC 2014 is smarter smart guides. So for example, if I go to the wild leaves layer and let's pull these apart. You notice I get a smart guide. Well, that's kind of new. We've had that in Illustrator, InDesign, and Photoshop for a while. But what's new is when I start to pull the next one apart, you notice that I get a readout that lets me know that now those are perfectly spaced 48 pixels apart from each other. So I'll go ahead and pull that one over, pull that one over, pull that one over, and now I'll get this one where I want it. So that layer selected, I'm going to hover over this layer. And holding down my Command key, it will now read out the distance of all the layers. And I can now use my arrow key to nudge that one over 24 pixels. Oops, too much. 24 pixels apart. Okay, so I got that one exactly the amount of space I want. So now I can pick up the other ones and just move them because they will snap to the same distance. And now I know, oops, they're all perfectly 24 pixels apart or whatever. So that's smarter smart guides. Oh, one more. So while leaves is selected, if I hold down the command key while any layer is selected and hover over any other layer, it'll tell me the distance any of those layers are from the one that's selected. So if I hover over this one, 24 pixels, that's what I expect. But then how far is this one? 142 pixels. How far is this one? 261 pixels. How far is this one? 379 pixels. So smarter smart guides. Close, save, updates. Now they're spaced evenly apart. All right, next. Let's close this one. And let's open up this one. So Photoshop CS4 introduced the first content-aware technology. It gave us content-aware scale. CS5 gave us content-aware fill. CS6 gave us content-aware patch. CC gave us content-aware move. And so every new version of Photoshop has had more content-aware technology. All of them have this, our CC 2014 has all of those technologies that I mentioned. But what we've done is to improve the effects of color when using those. So whether it's content-aware move, patch, healing brush, whatever it is, they all have a new setting now called color adaptation. So for example, let's say I want to use content-aware move. There's a tool for it. Well, there's now this new adaptation menu. And I'm going to set it to 0. It can go from 0 to 10. And set it from 0 to start. And now I'm going to use the tool to make a selection. So I just want to make a selection around this guy because he's no longer the leader. He's got them lost. We're going to take him out of the job to move him out of that position. So I'll just make a quick, painstaking, careful, perfect selection around him that only I can make. That's a joke. All right, so I made a selection and I purposely got some of the sky. Now you notice that the sky is a gradient. In most cases, the sky is never one solid color. And if you're working on any kind of color patterns, lighting, shading, it's going to be a variation of colors. So I want to move, the guy behind him now is the lead guy. So I want to move him behind the guy in front. Or the second guy. So I pick him up because I'm using the content-aware move tool. And I set him down where he goes. When I let go, it'll move him. But you'll notice that there's a slight difference in the color of sky. And matter of fact, the clouds aren't blending in at all. Because the color adaptation now is at its default of 0. So here's a tip. You can adjust it even while the selection's been made before you deselect. So if I go down to 0 and just use my up arrow key to increase the numbers, there's 1, gets better, 2, better yet, 3, gets better, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, too much. Maybe 7. And deselect. So better content aware, fill, patch, move, whatever you're using when there's colors involved.
It also adjusted the spot where you left from, correct? Doesn't look like there's a difference here too.
Okay.
You move the buttons back.
I believe you.
It's a little different.
Yeah, I believe you. I think it might have just been sampling though. That's why you're seeing the shift, but I believe you. I'll have to experiment with that. I hadn't noticed where I was picking it up from to see if there was a difference. But that's the new content-aware color adaptation, no matter which one of the content-awares you're using. All right, so now we got a new leader who's much happier about it. Next, open recent. Let's open up Jesse Boykins. And zoom him up. All right, I want to adjust this panel, which is again a linked or a smart object, not linked. So I'm going to double click on it, open it up, and I created a layer sandwich on this one. So there's the background that we started with, And then I duplicated the background and put it on top. Because in between is that. So here's what I started with. Then I added his name. And then I just duplicated the background and put it on top. So that's why we don't see his name anymore. In order, what I really would love to do is what you see on magazine covers all the time, where you've got the name of the magazine, but it looks like it's behind the people that are on the cover. So I'd love to have his name running behind him. What do I need to do to make that happen? Cut him out. Because his background's not going to change, but he needs to be separated on his own layer so he can be above the text. Problem is, Jesse's got hair. It's always a problem when you're selecting people with hair. I'd be easy to select. Quick select tool, 2 seconds. But when they got hair, that's when it has all kinds of complications. So I don't think there's ever been a new version of Photoshop that didn't offer a new way to select things. Because you can never run out of ways to select things. There's always, every photo's different. Therefore, there are more ways we have to select, the better we can do our jobs. So there's a new selection feature in CC 2014 called Focus Area. Now, who can tell me what depth of field is? That's the technical term for it.
Something close up. How you can make things look blurry, or it's how far things stay in focus.
Okay, so notice how Jesse's in focus, but the background's blurry, out of focus? Because it's a shallow depth of field. So a simple thing in photography with the right lens. Well, what if Photoshop could see that? What if Photoshop could now select on what's in focus? And now it can. So if I go to my select menu, there's a brand new focus area. Selection, brand new menu choice. And I don't have to do anything. Look, no hands. It just automatically looks for what's in focus and makes a selection based on it.
That's cool. That's
Okay.
cool.
All right, so let's move the dialog box over. Now, it's not perfect. It guessed wrong on his shirt. His shirt shouldn't be red. Whatever's red is not being selected. So, notice there's a tool already selected in the dialog box. I'm just going to pick the tool up and say, no, 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 I want to add this back in. You missed this, and it'll recalculate. Oh, no, no, no. You shouldn't have grabbed that little spot. Hold down the Option key and subtract that. Great, except for the hair. Because it doesn't know what's in focus, what's not in focus when it's frizzy, fine, thin strands of hair. It doesn't know what to do there. Because it's not sophisticated enough to determine this strand of hair is in focus versus the background is not. So it did the best it could. But notice that, or in, I believe it was CS5, we introduced a new feature for this called Refine Edge. And Refine Edge keeps getting better and is added into more things as we go along. And it's in this dialog box at the bottom left. So I can say, okay, great, you got what was in focus. Now I need to refine it with Refine Edge. So I'll click on Refine Edge. And that will bring up the Refine Edge dialog that we're all used to. And I'll first do a smart radius to kind of clean up the edges that should be sharp. And it does a nice job on that. Okay, but now the problem is the hair. So the Refine Edge also has a tool that's selected. It's the Refine Area Focus something tool. I forgot what it's called. Refine Radius tool, there it is. And now I can just say, no, 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 you need to refine this area in here, this area here, this area here. Just you need to recalculate this because the color I'm now painting is the color you should not be selecting. And it recalculates. Nope, you still missed a little here, you missed a little there. Recalculate. Do a better job. Okay? Maybe a little on the chin. Okay? And I'll put this as a new layer with a mask. And I can even shift it a little bit. If I really wanted to make it tight, I can use shift to even get in tighter on it. Click OK. New layer. I can now see the type. It even turned off the previous layer for me. And now I can, oh, actually, this is the previous layer. turned off the previous layer for me. And now I can go in, oops, don't want to do that. I can now go in and grab that logo and with the right tool, move it around and see it in the hair. Not bad for a few seconds of work. Especially, look at the wisp of hair. We can see the type through. Pretty cool. So, selecting based on focus, even if they have hair. All right, that's a little of Photoshop. Let's move on to, move on to Illustrator. Illustrator, the vector drawing tool, keeps getting better for even people like me that can't draw. All right, first, some tweaks around shapes. So the first one, let's change my view here. I'm going to go to the seating chart. The first tweak, if I go to my, let's go to my Terry White workspace, and then we'll go to my layers panel, and we'll scroll down, and we'll select the seating restrooms. So those 4 areas on the seating chart, the orange areas, are the restrooms. And the restrooms aren't really square; they kind of got rounded corners on them. So luckily, now, and this one thing is not new. This was in the last Illustrator update, I believe in January. Live corners. Now, for example, we can zoom in, and you get these handles for each corner, and I can now pull the handles in to round them. So, live corners. Again, now that came out in January. That's not new. So what's new then? Well, we took it a step further. Now instead of just live corners after the fact, we have live shapes. So for example, let me change my view. And let me draw a new shape from scratch. I'm just going to draw a rectangle. The minute hang on. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Undo, 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 close that. The minute I draw this shape on the blank canvas area, it brings up the transform panel by default. I didn't have to ask for it, didn't have to go look for it, brings it up automatically. Why would it do that? Because now the transform panel is also your live shape panel. So I can go in and say, you know what, I'd love this corner to be a 0.2, I love this corner to be a 0.4, I love this corner to be a 0.1, I love this corner to be also a 0.2. And I can live shape any corner, any part of the shape I can adjust using the transform panel. All right, why does that come in handy? Because it's not just for things you drew. Let's get rid of this. Let's go to my next view. Go back to the seating area, and this time we're going to pick the rest of the seating chart. I need all of those to look the same, and I need them all to not be square. So, bring up the transform panel, which I didn't mean to close. And this should be a 0.2. This should be a 0.02, 0.02, 0.02. Now that represents the actual shape of the seats or seating areas. So quickly and easily customize shapes with the new live corners and live shape tools. All right, next. What about drawing in general? Have we made any improvements there? Yes, we have. So I'm going to switch gears here. Let's switch this out. Let's go to my blank canvas area here. Let's put this back on its original setting. And let's draw. Okay, the pencil tool, believe it or not, has always been one of my favorite tools. Even though most people try the pencil tool once and never try it again. Because for most people it sucks. I admit it. Because the pencil tool was very accurate to its own fault. Meaning, your hand slips, it slips. Your hand is not steady, it's not steady. It's going to basically do exactly what you tell it to do. And this is one of those cases where you say, don't do what I said, do what I wanted. So here's the way the pencil tool has always worked. I'm going to try and draw the shape of her hair inside of it. So I'm going to try and curve like that. Here we go. I'm going to do the best I can. It gave me exactly what I asked for, not what I wanted. But it followed my hand perfectly. It gave me a point. Every time my hand moved a little, it gave me a point. That's why people hated this tool and never used it again, because it was too accurate. Well, now we go from accurate to smooth, or suck to great. I love having it on great. I leave it on great all the time now, or smooth. So now, same thing. I'm going to do the best I can. Here we go. Same tool. Oops. Hang on. Got ahead of myself there. Same tool. Here we go. I get a much better, smoother line. What if I ended it? What if I messed up along the way? What if I didn't quite get it right? Well, the pencil tool, the reason I always liked it, also has a reshape ability built in. It's had that for years. But now on smooth, it gets even better. So I can say, no, I kind of messed up right in here. I'd like to try that again, but I don't want to start over. I kind of like the front part. Front part looks pretty good. It's the middle that got a little rough. So I can say, start right on the path. Right about there. And I messed up again. Here, let's try it again. But it's reshaping the line that I already drew. There we go. So I don't have to delete and start over every single time with that tool. I can reshape it and get it just the way I want. So improvements in the pencil tool. And because the pencil tool draws paths, you can also kind of even make them look better with the width tool or width profiles. So if we zoom in, by applying a width profile to that, it looks even better. Okay, so that's the pencil tool enhancements. Again, those aren't new. Those were in January's update. What's new? Well, if the pencil tool got some love in January, what got some love in June? The pen tool did. The pen tool has always been the most accurate, meaning you can draw just about anything in Illustrator with the pen tool if you know how to use it. Great for experienced illustrators who've been using the pen tool for years and years and years. Horrible for new people, because it just makes no sense to a new person unless you explain it really well and they've had a lot of practice to it. The reason it makes no sense to new people is because, unlike the pencil tool that draws exactly the way I draw, the pen tool is based on plotting points, and if you plot the right point, you'll get the right result. You get a curve versus a corner versus a line. Well, now the pencil or the pen tool has what's called pen tool preview. So when I click to plot a point, I'll just click, and I'll just move away. I'm not holding anything down. I'm just moving away. I get a path letting me know that's what I'm going to get with my next click. So if I click right now, I'm going to get that line, even though I haven't clicked yet. So it's letting me know what's going to happen next, as opposed to me having to guess. And if I want to curve, I do have to know I need to hold down and drag, but now I get a preview of what the next curve's going to be, whether it's going to be curvy enough or not. So I get to decide how I want that next curve to go and how I want the next curve to go based on the preview. That's a little too much on that one. Let me undo it. That's better. So forth and so on. So pen tool preview now in this version of Illustrator. And even though I drew that with the pen tool, or here, let me escape. Even though I drew that with the pen tool, I can still refine it with the pencil. So if I still don't like it and I kind of wished it gone that way, I can still refine it. Doesn't matter which one you start with, you can adjust with the other one. All right, so pen tool drawing just got better. What if you wanted to draw something like a heart with a pen tool? Well, I kind of know how to do it, but this is what always screws people up. Okay, so you start off in the center of the heart, top center. So you go up that way because you're going to draw the first curve. Okay, great. There's the first curve. I can see it. Perfect. I even get a little guide letting me know that they're perfectly lined up. Great. Then I come down here for the line on the right-hand side going down. Great. I can see it. Ooh, I even get a little guide letting me know that that's the middle or I want it over here. That's better. Perfect. Plot that point. Then I come up here. Again, I get a nice guide letting me know they're lined up. Yay. Great. Maybe drag up or not to get that curve, and this is where it falls apart. This is where people screw up. Because now you want to close it, and it's not going to close right no matter what you do. Because here's what it's going to do. I come on the point I started on to close, I click and drag, and I get that. Because I'm coming from a curve into a corner, and that's what it's going to do every time. So what if I could do this? What if I could undo? Because now we have new closing options. No? Yeah. By the way, he said draw half of it, flip it over. Yep, you're absolutely right. But I don't have to do that anymore. I can actually draw it right. Hold down my Option key before I close it. Because now when I click to drag out that curve on the left, it will not affect the one on the right because I'm holding down the Option key. Here we go. So, for people that use the pen tool, or people that are new to the pen tool, these options should help quite a bit. All right, next up. That's it for Illustrator. There's a web thing I would show, but I'm going to bypass it, move on. InDesign, which I believe I reserved for this one. Yes. So, I started off talking about the whole CC 2014 versus CC. You're going to have both apps. Or let's say you're just starting fresh and you maybe jump from CS6 all the way to 2014. But let's say you have a previous version of InDesign no matter what, whether it's CC, CS6, CS5, whatever. What most people have told us, and we started this with Photoshop 2 versions ago, is that people want to and have the new version, but kind of start where they left off with all the same settings and presets and all the things that they want. They don't have to rebuild all that stuff from scratch. So Photoshop does a great job of that. When you launch it for the first time, it asks you, hey, do you want to bring your stuff over? Click yes, it comes over. All but your plugins. InDesign wasn't that friendly. So let's launch InDesign for the first time. One of InDesign's new features now is called Seamless Update. So what that means is it looks for a previous version first, and we don't even ask. We just assume you're going to want your same settings from InDesign, because most people do. And once it comes up, that's exactly the way I left InDesign CC with my same workspace, and it even says, hey, your previous settings and things were brought over. Hope you like it, because that's all you can do is click OK. Click OK, I'm right back where I was. And I even get the new, hey, what's new thing. All right, now let's go ahead and open up a document. And in this document, let's jump back to page 1. This is a souvenir playbook, or souvenir book for the Playfest, which is a fictitious festival. And this was designed to be an ebook when we're done. So keep that in mind. But let's jump to page 3. Page 2, page 3. Page 3 has a table on it. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can see it. It's this table right here where we got pictures in the first column, a little description or location in the second column, the band in the third, and then another text thing. Oops, the band should be right after the picture. So this column should be the second column. In previous versions of InDesign, cut, copy, paste, cut, copy, paste, cut, copy, paste, fix it on your own. Sorry, you're out of luck. You got to do it all by yourself. Now grab the text tool, which has always allowed me to select columns in a table or rows. Select that row, or column I mean. Pick it up, drag it over, done. Jesse Boykin should be number 2. pick them up, drag them up. Oops, pick them up, select them first. Hang on, select them first. There we go. And now pick them up, move them up, done. Drag and drop columns and rows. And this is that about time feature. Because there's nothing rocket science about tables. Excel's been doing them for, since the 80s. So finally we can do drag, drop, rearrange for columns and tables. Next, while we're here, this is kind of just a helpful thing, swatches. If you're an InDesign user, you're going to have probably lots and lots of colors because people like to have colors in their InDesign document. You might not have noticed, but what's new here is not only do you see your swatches, but now you can arrange your swatches in folders. So you can create folders of your swatches for organization purposes instead of having a swatch list that's a mile long. So swatches I use on the front page, swatches I use on this particular style artist, swatches I use on every page, whatever. You can put them in your folders and organize them, and then more importantly, collapse a folder that you're not using right now so that you can show just the swatches you want to use for this particular project. So that's kind of just a nice to have. All right, next up, and this is the big one. So I told you this was going to be an EPUB. This is an EPUB's worst nightmare because EPUB was never designed to look like this. What's EPUB look like? You guys have downloaded ebooks before. What do they look like? Text. Lots of text. Usually single column, maybe a picture here, text there. But never highly styled or designed like this. If you exported this to an EPUB back in CS5, CS4, CS6, stuff's going to be everywhere. Because EPUB was never designed to handle a document that looked like this. Until EPUB Standard 3.0 came out. So EPUB Standard 3.0 it's a standard. EPUB is a standard, just like HTML is a standard, so forth and so on. So it has versions. And EPUB 3.0 supports something called fixed layout. Now, so does InDesign. So if I go up to my file menu and I choose export, I now have the ability to choose between EPUB reflowable, which is the old EPUB standard that we know and love, or know and hate, and EPUB fixed layout. So why was EPUB always reflowable? Because whoever designed the EPUB standard back in those days figured, hey, we're going to make a book. It's going to be mostly novels. And you want it to fill up your screen no matter how small or big your screen is. So a small phone, you don't want it to be really tiny text. You want it to fill up the screen, be nice and legible. iPad, you want it to be bigger, more legible. 30-inch display, you want it to be bigger, more legible. So that's why the text always reflowed at the expense of the layout. Now you get to decide. For a layout-intensive project like this one, I can export out as EPUB reflowable. So if I choose reflowable, and we export it out, I get all my standard EPUB features like EPUB 3.0. I get multi-level table of contents style. I get to pick a cover. I can choose a cover image and go find that cover image and use whichever one I want to use as my cover. And I can set all my other EPUB settings. Well, I've already exported this out, and I have it open in iBooks because iBooks is now in Mavericks on the desktop, just like it is on the iPhone and the iPad and the iPod Touch. So we'll bring up iBooks. And here are two ebooks. Here's one I did back in the CC days, and here's the new one. When I double click on the Playfest, it will open up to the last page I left off on. Let's go back to the beginning. Looks just like the InDesign document. So there's the first page, second page, even with an edge animation. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, you just cheated. These are just ping files. They're just graphics. There's no way you're going to keep all this layout and have it be real text. Text. Searchable. Selectable. Highlightable. Because that's an EPUB feature that I can highlight the text and bookmark it and come back to things. Make notes. So everything's here, including This one doesn't look like it's clickable, but that could be a clickable table of contents. And EPUB 3.0 supports media, like MP3s. Oh, hang on a minute.
Here in Uncanny Valley, static frame, but down in the
So that's playing from the EPUB.
whatever to find the bond. So
Okay. Well, EPUB, if it supports audio, then it probably supports video too.
to find.
When you're making something which is total fun for you, like making music,
Wanna go
like
full
it's serious
screen?
in it, you really
screen.
must like force yourself, no matter how serious you are about it, to keep that playfulness and just keep like playing.
Now your EPUB is going to be a lot more exciting and a lot more visually appealing because of InDesign CC 2014 and EPUB 3.0. If I want to go to his Twitter feed, there's Twitter, Facebook, and whatever the cloud icon is. I don't know. All right, so that's InDesign CC. Now let's take a look at Muse. Muse is, so Adobe has two sets of web design products. We have web design for the traditional coder, web developer, products like Dreamweaver, Flash, so forth and so on. And then we recognize a much larger audience of people that want to write or make web pages or websites, but don't know anything about code. And it's very hard to find someone who's both a great designer and a great coder. Those two skills usually don't come in the same brain. But great designers shouldn't be limited on their abilities because they're not coders. That's why Muse was created. So, for how many of you have never seen Muse before? Okay, a few of you. So let's do a quick, what is Muse? So I'm going to say create a brand new site from scratch. And by the way, before I get started, you notice that this has a new darker user interface? Let's close this for a minute. Looks like InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator now? Because it's a rewrite from the ground up over the last 2 years. This is a brand new native 64-bit application. Normally a rewrite doesn't happen for 10, 15 years in an application's history. Muse got it in 2 years. Because we want to do so much more with it, and the Air technology it was based on was just too limited. So it got the rewrite early. So let's go in, and I hope you enjoy the new interface. Let's make a new site. By the way, because of that new interface, it now supports Retina or high DPI displays, not only in the user interface, but even the website you're creating. So if you want to make a high DPI Retina-based website, you can do that as well. Hang on, click OK. And that gives me my starting, hey, design your site. So we're making an artist site, so let's go ahead and say this is for the artists. This one's going to be for news. I'm basically drafting out what pages I'm going to be. This is going to be buy tickets. Pages, yes. And hey, I forgot, there should be a page for Amy. There should be, or Mary actually. There should be a page for Jesse. Hey, but it doesn't make sense to have those pages be in this hierarchy. They should be down here under the artist page. And Jesse should be next to Mary. So you drag and drop your layout, your structure any way you want. Oh, you want news to be after buy tickets? No problem. Okay, so now I've got the blank pages that represent each page ready to go. But I kind of want to have some like elements on all the pages. I don't have to keep copying and pasting and putting them on every single page, like a header. So let's go to the master page, just like we would in InDesign. Double click the master page. Zoom down a little bit. Zoom down a little bit more. I'm going to draw out a rectangle. Grab the rectangle tool, and I want to draw out a rectangle to be my header. Let's put that rectangle there, and let's fill it with black. Now that I got the rectangle filled out, I want to place a logo. Well, how do I get a logo? File, place, just like InDesign. Where do I get the logo from? Wherever you put the logo. So I put the logo here, the place logo's there, place it. I've decided that the logo should be further to the left. Oh my God, what do I do? Pick it up and move it. Put it wherever you want. It should be rotated a little to the left. Rotate it. Put it wherever you want. just like you would in InDesign. And that rotation, by the way, is writing CSS. It's not making a new graphic. It's writing the CSS to rotate it in the browser. Okay, great. If I go back and look at the rest of the site now has that header on every page. Well, wait, we need a menu. Let's go back to the master. I don't know how to make a menu, but luckily there's a widget library, which, by the way, because of the new Muse rebuild, I can tear my panels off now. Before you couldn't do that in the Air version. Yay! So let's go to our menus, and let's grab a horizontal menu, pull it out. It already knows about all my pages, so it's already got the menu structure. Remember we made that change, buy tickets should come before news? What if I go back and make that change in reverse? What if I decide, no, buy tickets should be last? If I go back to the master page, it's already updated the menu because the menu's looking at the structure of the site at all times. And now I can customize this menu. So if I don't like the gray boxes behind everything, then I can say, nope, doesn't have a fill at all. And now there's no fill for my menu. I can put my menu anywhere I want. Cool? So that's Muse in a nutshell of how to get started. Now you just go to each page and start placing all your content, your text, images, so forth and so on. All right, let's close this one. And let's open up another one that's a little bit, or open up that same site that's a little bit further along. And when I say a little bit, I mean a lot. Okay, it's a lot further along. And what I want to do is go in, we're going to add a new artist next to Mary. We're going to add the Terry White artist. Actually, it's going to be Mary anyway. You never want to hear me play a musical instrument. But anyway, let's go ahead and double click on my page. And let's, actually, I don't want to put the widget library away just yet. So in the last update, which was November for Muse, we added the ability to have full screen slideshows. So a full screen slideshow basically would mean that I can drop a slideshow on the screen and it takes up the entire page no matter how big or small the person's browser window is. That's great. But sometimes people don't want necessarily a full screen slideshow, they want a full width slideshow. In other words, I still want to be able to put stuff at the bottom or top of it. I don't want it taking up the whole screen, but I do want it to fill up the width of the screen. So now that's a new feature in Muse 2014. So if I go to my slideshows, there isn't one that's called full width because you can do it with any of them except full screen. But I can go ahead and drag out a blank one. And I can turn off the things I don't want captions, don't want counter. And I'll come back to put the stuff in it in a minute. Let's double click the window, let's pick it up, let's move it over, let's put it up there. And the minute I touch the left side, it turns red. That denotes to lock it to the left side so that the left side moves, it moves. Well, if I do the same thing on the right side, that's what makes it full width. So now it's locked to both sides of the window. No matter what size the window is, 30-inch display is going to be that wide, phone is going to be that wide. And of course, I can make it as high as I want. I can put the navigation buttons anywhere I want. And smart guides will help me line them up. I can make that taller. And now I can go ahead and put my content in. Let's go ahead and grab the photos. I'm going to go back to the assets folder. And this is going to be Mary. And 3 men. Okay, so now her images are in. And before I preview this, I just want to show you one more thing. The social widgets, refined them, added a couple more. So for example, now there is a Facebook comments widget. We had the follow before we had the like, so I can add a like button to this page just by dragging it out. And yep, standard view. I can add a Twitter follow as well. And I want it to follow, it would be her Twitter name, which I don't know, so I'll put in mine. Okay, and it will update and show the Twitter follow. Sorry, hang on. All right, so we got that page ready to go. Now let's preview it in the browser. That will render out the HTML and show it to me in a web browser. And there it is, full width slideshow. So if I make my browser narrower, slideshow gets narrower. Make my browser wider, the slideshow gets wider. So it's taking up the full width, but I still got stuff at the bottom here that I want. Okay? So that's full width slideshows and updates to the social widgets. I don't know what happened to my like button. That might have been up in the way of something else. Let's put that there. Next. Yes, Calvin.
Everything created in Muse is compatible with the major browser,
Define major browsers,
i.e. Chrome,
i.e. what version?
current version.
Yes. IE is always the wild card in web development because most things aren't compatible with the older versions of IE because IE did weird things. But current version should be okay.
Can you,
Okay, this isn't the Q&A time. We're coming to that. Almost done. Okay. So, brand new UI, handles 64-bit, handles high DPI resolution in the interface and on the websites you create. What's the big thing? The big thing is, in the previous version, we had something called in-browser editing. That's where I'm making a website for Leo. I'm the designer, I've got Muse, I build this site. But I don't want to be bothered with Leo's mundane, everyday changes to the text. I'm being nice because Leo's here. Leo wants to change little things here and there, text and images, and he doesn't want to pay me to do it. It would cost too much, and I don't have time to do little text changes, little image changes. So we have this feature called in-browser editing, where I can create a user, call Leo, whatever, give him a password, and he would just be able to open up a web browser, go to the site, log in, and make those kinds of changes. He can't move anything around, he can't redesign it, but he could click on some text and make a change. He could replace a picture with another picture. The only problem was the site had to be hosted with Adobe because our back end handled that ability for him to log in and do all that. And with Creative Cloud, you do get to host 5 sites with us. But what if you're already hosting the site somewhere else? GoDaddy, Network Solutions, Bluehost, wherever. Now with CC 2014 Muse, the site can be hosted anywhere. And you still get in-browser editing. So how does that work? I'm going to show it to you right now. Let's go to the browser. And let's go to inbrowserediting.adobe.com. That's the portal. So first step, the site has to be, even if the site's already finished, you have to re-upload it with the 2014 version. Just re-upload it to the same server you've been hosting it on. Now from here, you log into you go to this portal and you type in the domain. We'll find it wherever the site is. So I'm going to do the MacGroup site, which isn't hosted with Adobe. It's hosted with, it was Network Solutions. The site's not hosted with Network Solutions. The email is. The site's actually hosted at GoDaddy, I believe. So it doesn't matter. I don't even remember where it's hosted. Start editing, macgroup.org. Now it's asking me for the username and password. What username and password? The FTP username and password, which as the administrator, I can set up as many FTP users as I want. So I can give access to as many people as I want to be able to update the site. So I'm going to use one password, since I don't remember that, to put it in. And yep, fill it in, done. Sign in, and up comes the website. Here's the MacGroup website up on the web right now. If you were to go to it, this was what you'd see. But you notice, and I'm in a browser, I'm in Chrome, I could be in Safari, I could be wherever. But now, when I hover over the text, I get an edit button. When I hover over the images, I get an edit button because I'm logged in as the in-browser editing user. And so if I want to make a change, I click, Adobe, actually my official title is Principal. Principal. Worldwide Design Evangelist. Actually, it's design and photography. But who's counting? Okay. Update. That makes that change. I can keep going through each page, click a link, go to that page, make changes. Once I'm done making all the changes that I want to make, that I didn't want to have to pay the designer to make, I now click Publish. When I click Publish, wait for it, 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 success. Now if you were to go to the site right now, it says that. Because I have updated the website in a browser.
Terry, which one, Adobe apostrophe S?
Probably. Okay,
What's the black banner all about?
that's just a navigation to get to the other layouts of the site if I want to update the tablet and phone version as well. Okay, what happens to the Muse site? Because now it's out of date. The user went in and made changes. I'm in Adobe Muse. I don't have those changes. Go back to Muse. If this were the Mac Group site, I would now go up to File and say Sync with Web Version. It goes out to the web, sees what changed, brings it down and asks me, change by change, if I want it or not. Because maybe the changes are stupid and I don't want them in my Muse site. I can reject them if I don't want them. Or I could just say, I trust the person, it's their site, I don't care what they do, accept all. And now my Muse site is up to date with what they did on the web. In-browser editing, no matter where the site is hosted now.
What are the various things you can change?
Text and images.
Text and
Text and images.
change images? Add.
Change text and images.
Go back to that file.
A specific site, infrastructure,
Nope,
you'll find it wherever it is.
wherever's hosted.
No, I mean, wherever, say I have like an images folder where
Can I bring up the site in the browser? Can I bring up your site in the browser?
Yeah.
Then I can change it.
Go back to your file. The revert on there will only revert to the site.
That's referring to the local changes I made, right? Okay, moving on. Almost time for questions. All right, so that's Adobe Muse. We'll get to questions in a minute. Next up, Lightroom. So Adobe Lightroom, very quickly, no real big changes in Lightroom. It went from 5.4 to 5.5. Most of 5.5 is new camera support, new lens support, which we always do. So new RAW formats, new tethering, new lens corrections. But the big change for Lightroom in general is the addition of Lightroom Mobile, which got introduced in March. So Lightroom Mobile, once signed, so Lightroom, back up. You can buy Lightroom separately, or you can use Lightroom as a Creative Cloud member. If you buy Lightroom separately, then you get the updates like you always did for lenses and new camera support and so forth and so on. But if you're a Creative Cloud member, you can take advantage of Lightroom Mobile. Lightroom Mobile, back in March when it was introduced, was for the iPad. So what this allowed me to do is go up here, there's a menu, if I click, I can sign in to my Creative Cloud user ID and password. And then I can pick and choose, because what will happen once I sign in is there will be checkboxes here. And I can pick and choose which collections I want to sync with Lightroom Mobile. So those collections will then appear on the iPad. So for example, let's see if we can make technology work today. First of all, I gotta be on the same network. Second of all, let me restart this because I did switch networks a couple times. Alrighty. There it is. There it is. And there it is. Okay, so there's my iPad. And in my iPad, I've got the Adobe folder, and the Adobe folder, I've got Lightroom. and here's Lightroom. Oops. And those are the same collections that I checked off. So I can scroll down. There's my Antelope Canyon collection. There's my Antelope Canyon collection. Now you notice that, here, let me go here and open it. The sort order is different. The first photo on the iPad is not the same as the first photo in Lightroom. That was a big, like, just used to drive me crazy back in March. So long ago. Because in order for this to really, really be what I want, I have to be able to match my custom sort order. So as of Wednesday this week, custom sort order, bottom right, is now a choice. So when I choose that, it will match the iPad to whatever order I've sorted the photos in on the desktop, which is hugely important for people using this for their portfolios. Your portfolio's in the order you want the pictures to display in, you got to have it match here. All right, so that was what we had before. Now, of course, you could go through, you could look at the images full screen, you could make your Lightroom adjustments. Hang on, let me silence my phone. Thank you. So I'm going to pull that out and use it in a minute. Might as well get it on the same network while we're at it. And network, this network, and that network, and Lightroom. All right. Okay, so I can swipe through. Before we had, in March, we had the ability to swipe up to mark an image as a pick. To swipe, actually I like that one. Swipe down to mark it as a reject. In the new update as of this week, we now have star ratings as well. So I can make it 4 stars, 5 stars, 3 stars, whatever. And I'm not just doing this on the iPad. Those ratings are actually being, matter of fact, you already saw one pop in. There's the 4 stars. There's the pick flag. It's already happening back on the desktop. So when I take this out to review things, sit on the sofa, whatever, when I get back to my computer, they're all reviewed, ready to go. Now, of course, there's a photo here that needs some adjustment. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. That's a maybe. So that's what we had back in March for Lightroom Mobile. This is now June. And Lightroom Mobile now includes the iPhone. Same thing, put it in custom sort order. The same review process. I can click to view or mark things with star ratings, and I'm getting the same, there's the same 4 stars in the lower left-hand corner on the phone because I just did it on the iPad. All right, let's go back to that photo that could be a 5-star photo. Right now it's probably a 1-star or 2-star photo, but let's go ahead and make some adjustments. Let's, first of all, the sky is completely blown out. Horrible sky. And I told this story many times when I went out and shot this, and I was so disappointed when I got back to my hotel room. It just didn't look as good as all the pictures I'd seen on the internet. Spent 5 hours flying there, another 5 hours driving there, and still didn't get the shot I wanted. Then I went and looked at the photos again and realized this. Most people don't show the sky. All right, so that fixed that problem. Next, cropping. Next, still is kind of washed out, kind of boring looking, so let's go in and make some adjustments. These are all the same non-destructive adjustments that I have on the desktop. Let's drop the exposure down a little bit, not that much. Let's increase the contrast, great. Let's drop the blacks down, make them darker, perfect. Let's now, since it's a landscape, we can really go nuts on the clarity, we can go nuts on the vibrance, we can go nuts on the saturation as well. We can really bring that photo out, bring it to life. Now that's just a few drags of the finger. This is what I had, 3 fingers, before, after. Just that quick. Now you also see in the upper right-hand corner a little cloud icon. That's because it's sending those non-destructive adjustments to the cloud as soon as I'm done with the photo. Now it's going to sync that up to Creative Cloud and then back down to the desktop, back down to the iPad. All right. Now, the great thing about having a phone is that I'm always taking pictures with this. I have my DSLRs. I have thousands and thousands of dollars of professional camera gear. But what am I taking pictures with most of the time? Out and about, my phone, because I always have it with me. So that's why I was most excited to see Lightroom Mobile for iPhone, because now if I go to the built-in camera, and we'll take a shot of you guys. Now, of course, it put that picture on the camera roll, but if I go back to Lightroom Mobile, I've got set one of the collections called On the Go to auto-import any new pictures. So it just said one photo imported successfully, which, by the way, if you look at the iPad, it's updated the photo that we were working on because it synced it over there. So we go to On the Go, there's you guys, and that photo is now being uploaded in the full resolution because you captured it out and about, so we can't just do a smart preview like we did with the raw files. It's actually uploading the full resolution, Creative Cloud, back down to your desktop. So when you get home, back to your office, you've got all the photos you've captured out and about in Lightroom. All right, same thing here. I could mark this with stars, make it a pick. I could flag it, but let's go ahead and make another, let's use a preset because we have the same built-in presets that we have in Lightroom. So let's make this a nice contrasty or not so contrasty black and white. There we go. So now again, that change will be synced up to Creative Cloud and then back down to the desktop. So if I go back to the computer here and I go to my on-the-go collection, there's the photo, already came down, and we're just waiting for the adjustment to appear. Now, people ask, well, how long does it take to sync, and how long is this? And, well, obviously, it's dependent on the internet speed. But number two, what I always remind people, when are you going to have both devices side by side looking at them? You're not. The point of this is not how fast it syncs the changes because you're not waiting on it in real time. I'm out doing this. When I get back, it'll be there. I'm not looking at them side by side waiting for it. But even then, it still did it pretty much instantly. There it is. So, that's Lightroom Mobile. Last but not least, then we have our Q&A time. Adobe, what, 30 some odd years old now? I don't know the exact date. Has always been, for the last 30 years at least, software company. All the way back from its early roots with PostScript and Illustrator 1.0. Software, software, software. June 18th, 2014, Adobe launched its first ever hardware product. Hardware. So let's take a look at it. Not the camera. That's not the hardware product. Not the cable. Although there'd be lots of money in cables. And drawing, and here's what it looks like. So, ink and slide. This is ink, a hydroformed aluminum, Bluetooth, fine tip, smart Creative Cloud pen. Feels great in the hand. The other one, I thought I took out already, maybe I did. Maybe I got distracted. Is Slide, a digital ruler. Both of these are designed to work on the iPad to give you precision drawing for the first time. So for example, let's switch back to Reflector, and the phone's already off, great. Let's go Reflector, let's hide Lightroom, we're done with that. And let's make this bigger so you can see it. Okay, not so big. Let's see the bottom. Great. So to make this work, you need apps to be able to draw it. So we released 2 new free iPad apps. The first one's Adobe Line, the other one's Adobe Sketch. So Adobe Line, I'll go ahead and launch it. is a drawing application. And I already created some sketches here that you can kind of see. You can trace, you can bring in a photograph and trace on top of it, or you can just draw. Okay. Nothing's replaced yet. You decide if it replaces ideas. Okay, I'm going to press the button on the pen to get it going. Or not. There we go. And I'm connected, great. So I can make pen strokes, great. Off. I can change the weight. It is pressure sensitive, so a light stroke versus a heavier stroke. You get pressure sensitivity. And again, unlike every other stylus I've ever seen on a touchscreen, no rubbery, hard to be fine, precise rubber tip. This is a fine tip pen. So in this app, to undo, two fingers swipe to the left, or to go back in time, hold down 3 fingers and go back in time.
Does it have layers?
This app does not have layers. Well, it has a drawing layer and a photo layer, but not multiple drawing layers. Okay, yeah, it is version 1. Let's go in, and again, you saw that I'm not really good at drawing, so if I tried to draw a straight line, it comes out something like that. Not too bad until I got to the end. That's where slide comes in. Slide, the digital ruler, as soon as I put it down, it projects lines for me to draw with. So I can move it around, and I will get perfectly straight lines every time. Okay, well, what if I don't want to just draw lines? There's a button on slide. Press the button, get different shapes. There's a circle. Pinch and zoom to make the circle bigger or smaller. I'm drawing a perfect circle for the first time. All right, what if I want another shape? Press the button again. There's a square. I don't want the whole square, I just want the corner. Draw the corner. I would love to go back to a line so I can finish this off. It snaps to the same points so I can finish off that triangle. Or I could have just drawn a triangle. There are other shapes. What if I want French curves? I was told you can't draw a car without a French curve tool. There's a French curve. I can now draw a perfect French curve. What if I want other things? Here, let's get rid of some of this. What if I want other things? For example, Herman Miller chairs. Need to draw in an office, need a chair. Make your chair bigger. Are you going to make me draw that whole thing? Nope. Double tap, stamp the chair. What if I want devices? Go to devices. Hello, go to devices. I'm done with the menu. There we go. Go to devices. There's my iPad. iPhone. Computer. Double tap. There's a computer. So, ink and slide. These are sold as a set. The app's free. What if I didn't have these? The app's free. What good is a free app if you don't have the tools? Right? Touch slide. Go back to lines. Move touch slide around with my fingers. Drawing perfectly straight lines with my fingers. Go to the circle. Make the circle bigger. Draw a perfectly round circle with my fingers, even if I don't have the hardware. Obviously, my finger doesn't give me pressure sensitivity because because the iPad screen is not pressure sensitive. But I can at least draw with my fingers with the digital tools. Make that smaller, another perfect circle, even the French curves. Sure. Draw them both exactly the same. It's 1.0. Now, wait, hang on, let me finish. Then you can barrage me with questions. All right. I have access to not only the images on my camera roll, but I also have access to anything I've stored in Creative Cloud to bring in as a template to draw on. I have access to my cooler themes, whether I created them with the color wheel or captured them with the cooler iPhone app. I have access to, undo some of this or history back. I have access to vanishing point to draw in perspective. Okay? This is the free 1.0 app. Expect it to get better. And that's line. Once I'm done, once I'm done, which I'm still working on this one, I could go in and share it. Now, not only can I share it and get feedback, I can send it to my Creative Cloud folder, or I could send it to Photoshop or Illustrator directly from here. So that's line. Now, again, I'm not an artist, so I'm not going to even attempt to bore you with my non-sketching capabilities. So what I'd rather do is show you what someone can do with Sketch. Sketch is another free app, very similar to Line, but more for sketching. And let me show you what it does. And it's just better to show you this way. The App Store.
What's the app called?
Are you on a phone or are you on the iPad? It's not a phone app.
What's the name of that app?
Adobe Line, Adobe Sketch for the iPad.
What level of iOS do you have?
I don't know.
How does that compete to Cintiq? That's pretty
Cintiq's,
small.
well, the ink's got got thousands of lines of pressure. Your iPad screen is only so big. The Cintiq's bigger. So it is what it is. All right, that's Adobe Ink and Slide, Line and Sketch. Last but not least, one more free app, and it is called Photoshop Mix. So what's Photoshop Mix? Well, first of all, Photoshop it's not the first Photoshop app for iOS. Photoshop Mix is another iPad app, so don't look for it on your phone. It's not on your phone. We've got Photoshop Express, Photoshop Touch, and Photoshop Mix now. What's Mix? It's impossible to get a Photoshop app on the iPad that does everything for everybody. Just like Photoshop has spent 25 years trying to be everything to everybody, and it's still not there yet. So the iPad, limited in size, memory, storage space. So rather than try and build one big app like Photoshop Touch, which you could argue tried to be everything to everybody, we decided to build smaller apps that tackle specific tasks. So in the case of Photoshop Mix, it's a compositing tool, it's an adjustment tool. So for example, I've got a flower image open here, here, I'm just going to go ahead and open it. And now that I've got the flower open, what I'd love to do is a non-destructive enhancement to it. So I'm going to go to Looks, and I've got lots of looks to choose from. I've got Portrait, Bright, and Vivid. I can just swipe through and get more looks. I kind of like the black and white look, so if I just tap that look, it just does it. And of course, I can cancel or undo or whatever. But what I'd love to do is selectively do it. So the minute I start, or the minute I say OK, actually, I didn't mean to say OK. Sorry about that. Looks. Let's go to Smart. The minute I go to Smart, I can tell it what part of the flower not to do it on. Wait a minute, you're doing the opposite. You probably want the flower yellow in the background, black and white. Well, I always go for what's easier. It was easier to do the flower. Now that I got the flower selected, invert the effect, because there's an invert button. So there's my look. All right, so that's quick, non-destructive adjustments. Now let's go to do something a little bit more sophisticated. First of all, access to your photos is what's key in these new apps. So I have access to my camera roll. I have access to take a picture with the device. I have access to my Creative Cloud folders, and everything's stored on Creative Cloud I can bring down into the app. I even have access to my Lightroom libraries now because of Lightroom Mobile. So these are the same Lightroom libraries that we were just looking at, including my on-the-go collection with my photo. If I go all the way down to the bottom here, my photo of you guys is there at the bottom right, because I'm pulling everything from the same place. Now what I'd love to do is go back to my Creative Cloud folder, go back to my demo folder here, Photoshop Mix, and I've got a photo I'd love to bring in. I love this sky in this particular photo. So now I've told it to bring that photo down into the device from Creative Cloud. I'm going to go ahead and just make the sky the whole picture, because that's what I'm really interested in. You notice in the upper part of the window, there's the sky on the left, red box, on the right, a blank layer. This app has 2 layers. So I can go in and say, now add another layer. Again, go back to the Creative Cloud folder, go back to the demo folder in Creative Cloud, go back to Photoshop Mix, and grab Monument Valley, which had a horrible sky that day. Go ahead and open up that photo, put it right on top on the second layer. So first layer is the sky, second layer is the bad sky. What I'd love to do now is bottom middle button, cut out. Do a cutout, and again, using my finger, I'm not even using ink, even though I could. I can go ahead and grab ink, and I can say, select this, but I'll use my finger, and tell it to select the parts of the photo that I want to keep. There we go. The rest is cut out. Done. Go back to the sky layer, move the sky around, get the sky in position on my iPad. Once I'm done, I can share it, or better yet, save it to Photoshop. Now what it's doing is making a layered PSD of this with the 2 layers that I've done with the mask and all, saving it out and sending it to Creative Cloud, so it'll be on my desktop when I get back. I can just open it in Photoshop as a layered PSD file. Okay, store it on the Creative Cloud, and in a moment you'll probably notice the Creative Cloud thing. Yep, there it is. It's syncing already. Files, syncing 1 file, 17 seconds left. Okay, we'll look at that in a moment. Now, remember when I said, you're limited by what the device can do? So much RAM, so much storage, so much horsepower. If this had everything it could be, then we could put the full Photoshop on here. You wouldn't need your desktops anymore. But it's a long way from that. So there are just things we would love to be able to do that we just physically can't because of the restrictions of what the device can't do. But what if you could, for example, go here. Let's grab a photo. And let's grab a photo that needs something that the iPad can't do. For example, you remember my shake reduction photo, right? The blurry flower? Let's go ahead and bring that one down. Camera shake reduction requires a lot of horsepower even on the computer. It's a progress bar process. So you won't see that on the iPad for years. Well, it's not on the iPad, but what if we could still access it? More edits. There are 3 functions that are cloud enabled, including shake reduction. So if I go to shake reduction, it's uploading this image to Creative Cloud where we've got Photoshop running in the servers in the cloud, processing the shake reduction. Once it's uploaded and finished processing, it will bring down the results to my iPad for me to choose from. So the processing for those 3 functions isn't happening here. It's happening online. So that's how we're able to do things that this physically can't do yet. So once it's finished uploading, it's rendering. Now it's doing its thing in the cloud with all the Photoshop machines running up there. And once it's done with its results, it'll bring them back down to the iPad. And again, like I said, this is another free app. Even if you don't have Creative Cloud, those still same 3 Creative Cloud functions will work. And by the way, even if you don't want the full Creative Cloud that you pay for, anyone can sign up for the free version of Creative Cloud, which gives you 2 gigs of storage and Adobe ID, so forth and so on. So here's the blurry version. Let's zoom in on it. That's the one I started with. Here's the one that came back from the cloud. Okay, that's version 1, version 2, version 3. I kind of like version 1 better. Okay, I like it. Now that's my new photo. And if we go back to our Creative Cloud Files folder, open the folder, open the Photoshop folder, there's the composition we worked on earlier with my layers and masks intact. So I can go in and refine it further and work on it further. Starting the process on the iPad, finishing it on the computer. Photoshop Mix, free app. I think I probably don't have time for one more, but I'm going to do one more anyway. Get those questions ready. Rapid fire. Nope, wrong folder, wrong folder. Demo. Photoshop Mix. Let's do one more for fun. Remember this? Oh, you're not looking at it. Remember this photo? Let's bring it into the iPad in the Photoshop Mix. Just like shake reduction won't be on the iPad anytime soon, not enough horsepower, there's something else that won't be on the iPad anytime soon. Content-aware fill. Too much horsepower required. What if I could take my finger and just get rid of that first guy? Say okay, let it upload that image, do the content-aware fill in the full version of Photoshop running in the cloud, and bring back down the result. All right, questions while we wait. Go.
For 2 quick ones for Adobe Muse. One, if you have existing websites, how difficult it is to import it into that? And
There is no importing of websites. You redo them.
redo it?
Yep.
Do the second one.
We'll wait. Go on.
When you say you have access to all of these different fonts, what about commercial use?
Define commercial use.
I'm going to use it either for somebody else's website and they're going to sell stuff,
Content-aware fill done. Okay, go on.
or I am going to use it myself for something.
You can use it yourself. You can print with it. You can use it commercially to do brochures and all. Otherwise, it will be no use. What you can't do is embed it in like an application. You can't give it to someone to use. You can't do
But I
those
use it
kinds
on
of things.
somebody else's website.
Sure. Typekit is built into Muse, so you can use it for other people's websites.
I remember. How difficult is it to make an e-commerce site on Muse?
How difficult is it to make an e-commerce site on Muse? MacGroup.com, MacGroup.org is a Muse website, and you can join on the site.
I mean, you can buy things and
As long as your e-commerce partner gives you the code to put on your Muse site. So I'm using PayPal, which I get the code, which now there's a PayPal button built in. But before that, I used the code from PayPal and put on the site. All right, over here.
As far as the Creative Cloud is concerned, is it time limited? Is there a time limit that when you give somebody access code to your Creative Cloud so they can download, are they automatically time limited?
Question is, if I'm sharing a file and letting someone download it, are they time limited to access the file? There's no time limit. You can at any time go back and revoke access to that file.
Okay, the next question I had was, as far as the fonts are concerned, once those fonts are downloaded, can they be used in any application that you have on?
Once the fonts are downloaded from Typekit Desktop, they can be used in any application.
are you automatically signed in to Adobe when your computer boots up? So
You're automatically signed into the Creative Cloud app when your computer boots up. You're not automatically signed into the website.
well, once you sign into the website,
Then you're
so
in.
it's like cookie thing.
Right.
Okay. And then as far as Muse is concerned, I noticed that you started with a 960 grid system. Is the 960 grid the only, I'm thinking in line of 4K TVs when they...
You can make the site any size you want.
Okay,
It's defaulting to 960.
okay, thank you.
On the storage, what storage are you using? Is it on your Creative Cloud?
Which storage?
Well, let's say you're taking, I'm assuming if you take a photo, let's say with your iPhone, it's stored there,
You're talking about Lightroom.
and like,
Lightroom Mobile does not count towards your Creative Cloud storage. It's an unlimited storage of photos. And it's not counting towards your Creative Cloud. So if you have 20 gigs of Creative Cloud storage and you put up 10,000 photos, you still have 20 gigs of Creative Cloud storage.
so even the access from your Lightroom doesn't affect.
Does not affect your Creative Cloud storage. Lightroom Mobile is its own and it's unlimited.
Yeah, is it meta?
We reserve the right to tell you if you're abusing it. But right now it's unlimited. Meaning if someone tried to upload 10 million photos, I mean, we might say something.
If you're
But it's
transferring
unlimited.
metadata, which with your iPhone photo, like I use it a lot for GPS data. So I could actually put it right in Lightroom and then use it to my
Yep. So his question was, if I shoot a picture with Lightroom or shoot a picture with my iPhone, it's got location and metadata in it, does that location information end up in the desktop? Yep. As a matter of fact, let's go to Lightroom. Let's go to that photo we just took. And let's look at it in the map view. Actually, selected photo. Actually, I didn't see my, hang on. Go back to my thingy. I'm not viewing all my thingies. Show badges, there we go. So there's the location button. Click the location button, it shows me where we are right now. That photo came from the iPhone with the location information in it, and Lightroom sees it. You had a question.
Yeah. Right. The apps that you were talking about.
Adobe Line, Adobe
Okay,
Sketch,
okay.
Lightroom Mobile, Photoshop
Yeah,
Mix.
yeah,
Yep.
Is everything predicated upon a Creative Cloud subscription?
No. Lightroom Mobile is. Line and Sketch can be used without a subscription, although you probably do need an Adobe ID because it does ask you to sign in. But that's free. And Photoshop Mix, Line and Sketch do not. That's right. So obviously, and yeah, it's still free. Even if you want to access your Creative Cloud storage, with a free account, you get 2 gigs. So yeah. Go ahead.
You didn't say how much the newfangled pen was.
The line or ink and slide are sold as a set for $199 from Adobe.com.
So when you imported, or when you brought in the iPhone, where did it go actually?
When I brought in the picture from my iPhone, it was transferred up to Creative Cloud and down to Lightroom on the desktop in its full resolution and metadata. It puts it in a folder from the iPhone right there.
Doing the apps in the iPhone and the iPad, is that all on
Data plan?
communication data on?
When you're doing things on your iPad in these apps or the iPhone and you're sending data back and forth and you're not on Wi-Fi, yes, it's using your data plan. So if I'm on Lightroom, or if I'm in Lightroom Mobile out in the field taking pictures and I launch Lightroom and it imports those pictures and start uploading them, that's when it's using my data plan. But if I already have the pictures on there and I'm just modifying them, then it's not using the data plan until it sends the modifications back up. So you can be offline, and by the way, I should point that out. Here, let me, I'm trying to figure out where it's easiest to do it. It's probably easiest to do it on the iPad since the iPad's still up. In Lightroom Mobile, for each collection, you can, like you see the little icon next to Antelope Canyon on the bottom right, but it's not there on architecture, that architecture one doesn't have that little icon. That little icon to the right of Antelope Canyon means that I have set it, which I'll do it here for architecture, to enable offline editing. See the third choice? So if I enable any collection for offline editing, those 39, 19, whatever photos are downloaded onto the iPad. So I can work on them whether I'm connected to the internet or not. Then once I'm reconnected, the adjustments get sent back up. So these photos, even if I turn off my connection right now, are here, I can work on them.
But it's actually downloading previews, not the whole file.
Correct. It is smart previews, not the raw files, not the JPEGs, except JPEGs are sent from your iPad or iPhone that you captured back to the desktop.
These mobile apps, do they link up with the exact version of Creative Cloud?
Good question. So, and I didn't get, since I didn't give the slide presentation, I did not mention that. So let me, I bypassed the slides, I didn't want to bore you, but that's a critical piece that's in the slides. So let me open up the slide deck just to show you that one slide. Blah, 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 blah. By the way, we're happy to report 3.2 million paid users of Creative Cloud. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Here we go. So we had this thing back in October called or November, the Photoshop for Photographers deal. $9.99 for Photoshop and Lightroom and 20 gigs of storage and a Behance Pro site. Black Friday special. Oh my God, it went crazy. Extended to the end of the year. Oh my God, it keeps going crazy. Extended to the end of January. Oh my God, it keeps going crazy. Extended to Photoshop World. And then we just finally said, why are we extending it? Why don't we just make it permanent? So now it's a permanent offer. It's a permanent plan. It's not a limited time. It's not a you have to be a CS3, 5, 4, 5, 6 user. Anyone can go now and sign up for $9.99 and get Photoshop and Lightroom. And 2 gigs of storage, not 20. Got to reward the people that did take advantage of the offer. So it's no longer a limited time thing. It's permanent. Good question. And yes, Lightroom Mobile is part of that, to answer your question. So it includes Lightroom Mobile.
Are these apps that are now available for iPhone and iPad, is there any thoughts of moving to Android?
Question is, and I'd be disappointed if that didn't happen at least once per day. I get this question everywhere I go. So, hey, these are great on iPad or iPhone. Any thoughts of bringing them to Android? We're always thinking of platforms. We never stop thinking of platforms. But keep in mind, Adobe has had several apps on Android, including some that were on Android first. And the Android users did not download them and use them, and they got canceled. Adobe Ideas was on Android and iPhone or an iPad. It's no longer on Android because there just weren't enough people downloading it. So we're always evaluating demand. When demand is there, we'll put it there. But if demand is not there, there's work to not only create those apps. You might think, okay, well, can't you just program them and do it? Yeah, but then there's work to update them, because every time we'd update it on the iOS, you'd want that same update on Android. And if no one's downloading them, we're not going to invest the money to do them. So, yes, we're always thinking about it.
I remember my whole question because it was in the beginning. But photo sharing, my wrote the question, is there a size limit? Because you said it goes through email. Could I send a large one?
Well, email's email, but if you're sending a link to it from Creative Cloud, from your storage, or from the Creative Cloud website, that is a link for them to be able to download it. So you're not sending the email, the photo, you're sending a link. So if I go to adobe.com, and I go to my files area, and I want to send you this PSD that will come up eventually. Here we go. I want to send you this PSD. I don't care how big it is, because when I send you the link, I'm sending you the link to download it. So you're just getting the one line, click the link to download it. Doesn't matter how big it is. And I'd have to do this first too. Otherwise, if I don't do that, you can just look at it. You can't download it. All right, I think that's it. You guys have fun?